Huawei was once a mammoth in the tech industry. It was not possible to forget about Huawei while we talked about the biggest tech companies in the world. But what was exactly so great about this specific Chinese company that not only big players like Apple, but even the US government kept a constant eye on them? I mean, they were so tensed about Huawei that in the end, they banned them from selling their devices in the USA or using services from US companies like Google. Also, there were a lot of companies that did business like Huawei and were Chinese. Then, what was so different about this specific company? By initially deploying in small cities and rural areas, the company solely focused on service and customizability. And slowly they increased their market share and penetrated the mainstream market. One thing that Huawei had nailed down to the T was customer service. They believed in their customer and were there for them all the time. It can be seen in one of their stories where a lightning broke down one of their communication towers in a small city. But Huawei's trust did not waver. They sent their representatives to that city and they stayed there until the tower was not fixed. They did not turn a blind eye towards that service area or to the rural cities. Instead, they stayed with them and sticked with the customer. That is when the customers realized that Huawei was not just another company. They were a little different. They could be trusted and they started gaining the trust of small cities. Okay, so Huawei was helping their country become self-sufficient in technology and were providing some amazing connectivity. Fair enough. But that could not have solely made them the giants that they once were. There must have been some secret strategies or something that they must have followed, right? That made them so different from the competition. Well, turns out there were some things and we are here to decode it. Huawei did not allow a single person to take responsibility for the outcome of their R&D investments, whether it was a success or a failure. A single person could not be blamed or be celebrated for their R&D division. That meant that teamwork was always there. Whether you were failing or succeeding, you would always be working as a team and reaping the benefits or losses together as a team, which led to a cohesion in the company. Not only that, R&D leaders who failed were not seen as disappointment in the company. Instead, they were seen as research heroes because they had uncovered something that was not working well and could be prevented in the future. Not only was Huawei's R&D culture great, but they also invested heavily in it. There were 15 R&D centers, 36 joint innovation centers, 13 open labs and 45 training centers worldwide. Crazy. Huawei did have a great R&D culture and did invest heavily in R&D. But it could not have been said that it just set them apart. There were different companies like Samsung who were also researching and investing heavily. But there was another thing that Huawei did differently. That was open innovation. Open innovation was like a symbiotic process where Huawei used to lend their strong technologies and equipments to a party and in return ask for joint research in areas that Huawei was not very strong at, but the other party was, which led to the other party gaining Huawei's powerful technology and Huawei gaining the other party's expertise for the areas they were weak at. Not only did they contribute with different companies, they also used to buy licenses of foreign developed technologies and then they used to reverse engineer it to understand what was exactly going on in the technology. That was something that was very unique to Huawei at that point in time. Another great attitude that Huawei showed was that they were not scared of reaching out to different companies for help. For example, they reached out to Huawei for their integrated product development and supply chain process, which they needed help in, so that they could scale their own production and use an expert like IBM for helping them. Huawei's great learning attitude and sharing nature was one of the reasons why Huawei grew so fast and was one of the key factors that separated them from other companies. Another place where Huawei worked very differently was under their Huawei Innovation Research Program, where they collaborated with the top 1000 universities and developed new tech with students. There was usually university research before also that was collaborative with different companies, but it was never optimized for profitability or market needs. But this program changed that. Huawei sent their own researchers to collaborate with students and follow up with the program of research and help them tweak their products so that could be used in the market and would be profitable. Now this open innovation and research could have been wasted if the company would have not followed the right direction for their growth. But Huawei did not do that. They invested heavily in patents and standardizations and collaborated and created a lot of proprietary technology. I mean, they invested so heavily in research that today they have more than 0.1 million patents to their name. Not only that, Huawei also developed their own proprietary technology, which led to a shortcut, and they did not have to pay for the intellectual property rights or fees to other companies. Instead, they made their own technology and put patents on them. They are also a member of 400 standardization groups and have applied for approximately 60,000 standardization proposals in total. Huawei did not just randomly invest in patents. Instead, they had a future-looking approach due to which they used to care for the technology that is going to come up in the future and prefer investing in that than the current technology. That is why instead of investing in GSM, they invested heavily in 3G CDMA. Not only 3G, they even invested in 5G in 2009 itself and were leading to formulate the unified standard for 5G. The investment in 5G and 3G was amazing, great. But a lot of companies collapse from the inside. A lot of times there is this greed of power inside the hierarchy of the company which collapses and destroys the company in itself. But then how did Huawei stop people from leaving or have these huge fights? I mean, how did they stay strong for so long? Well, that was because of their organization policies. Think of this. Can you think of a company in which the founder has less than 1% equity? That is Huawei. Huawei had this employee shareholding scheme where the 80,000 employees were shareholders and the founder had not more than 1% of the equity. Except for the founder, there was a regular change in the executives also. So there was always a fresh environment in the company. Everybody was always creative and thinking, because after some time a new executive would come up, and that would also lead to less fights as there was always a new research partner after some time. So you would not be in the tension that, oh boy, I have to work with this guy for so long. Not only did they care about the work culture by changing the executives, they also care about the working conditions. And they ensured maximum loyalty by having offices of 2 million square meters. The employee had dormitories, cafeterias, hospitals, gymnasiums, tennis courts, and so on and so on. I mean, I can't name them, but every facility you could think of was there in their office. Now, Huawei did not just provide a great working environment and a great company culture. They did not skimp on the wages either. They attracted hard-working talent by giving them high wages and welfare schemes, which kept their workers always happy. Now, as the brand was working so hard, progressing slowly, after climbing the ladder, they hit a ceiling after some point. And the name of that ceiling was China. After all, you can only extract so much out of a country. And Huawei had to look at different places so that they could increase further. And that is when they turned their eye to the global economy. And they knew that they had to expand their market. Well, Huawei did it in style. By 2019, Huawei was in 170 countries and had R&D centers which were catering to the local needs of the country, not specific just to the Chinese people, but instead every R&D center used to look at the needs which that country specifically needed, making them much more personalized and not just another Chinese company. They also made an inclusive business. where even the base of the pyramid was given high importance. One example of this idea could be seen with Bangladesh, which is a great country, but their economy was not very strong at that point in time. Huawei could have skimmed on that country and paid more attention to different other markets. But Huawei did not skim. What they did is they launched a 4LED project in Bangladesh, which was the service to lend mobile to women in rural areas. Not only that, they launched a solar-powered base station with Grameenphone in Bangladesh, which was a major telecom operator there. This shows that even though Huawei was a business which was, of course, programmed to maximize profits, they still cared about countries which could not exactly be very strong for their prospects, but needed their help. One example, as we can see, was Bangladesh in that term. In addition to these early business strategies that Huawei had implemented, there was also a sense of Huawei being at the right place at the right time, which helped Huawei survive their infancy and set the scene for Huawei to become the global company that we once knew. There was only one issue with Huawei. When they took their global flight, they almost flew too close to the sun, and the sun's name was the USA. But what exactly was so scary about Huawei that the US government not only feared them, but ultimately banned them in their country? Well, that is the topic of the next upcoming video in company case study. Until then, you can look at this video of air charging, which will tell you how is the future, but there is a huge sacrifice we would need to make for that. Or these earphones that most probably are the best earphones for a student under 3000.